Like, really, anything would be better than that.
Oh my God.
Oh God, the things we did.
Wow, Rose! Wow, Rose!
All right, ready?
Ready.
Let's do this. Dun, 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 dun. All right. Then,
now that we have rockied ourselves to get started, get the vibes in. Today, Shonah, my question for you is, I always find this is a really, really interesting question to ask people. What was your very first job?
Okay, very first job is like as a teenager or full-time job?
No, like very first job ever making money in a job.
Okay.
Whatever that may be.
My very first was in a caravan park kiosk. I had to sell fishing bait and ice creams and all the, the washing powders and all that to the people staying there. But
I know them well.
Yes, right. Yes, you do. But also it was open to the public. So this kiosk was open to the public as well. It was on the road, and it was actually a petrol station as well. So I was a petrol station chick, because back in the
olden days, as my kids call it.
Like, in the olden days.
In the olden days. Fuck.
That's so awful. I hate saying that, but it's so true. And so back in the olden days, you served people's petrol. They didn't do it. They could sit in the car, or they'd come out, or they could stand beside you, but you actually put the petrol in the car.
What service?
I know, it's pretty cool.
Why don't we still have that?
We actually do. In Mildura, there's a service station here that it's a family-owned one, and they still come out and pump petrol for you and have a chat to you, and then you follow them back in and pay. Yeah. So that was my job as a 15-year-old. I used to ride my bike there. That's what I did. I served all day, served petrol all day. It was cool fun in the summer because we're right on the Murray River, right? So the caravan park, like the sites were right on the river. And so it was really popular for ski boats. So there was ski boats and people everywhere. It was flat out. And so, Christmas holidays was amazing for me to work there, because it was just full on, like, it's just a vibe, just holiday vibe.
Yeah.
Like, that was cool. Yeah.
Wow. That's so
really
cool.
I know. It was deadly as. See, that's taking me back.
Love it.
What's yours?
So my first job, oh my gosh. Okay. So my first job, I worked in a cake shop.
That is cool.
Yeah. So I worked in a cake shop, and I sold cakes, and I made cakes, and
I made them as well.
Well, I helped make them. There were actual bakers that were hired to make the cakes. But
so cool.
Yeah, I had to help with the cakes and baking them and all of that sort of stuff. One of the things that I got to do was the writing on the cakes when somebody comes in, they're like, I need a cake for so-and-so's birthday. I would sometimes do the writing on the cakes, which fun. It was super fun. But also it actually turned me off eating cake. I didn't eat cake for years after that.
Really?
Yeah. Because, at first I was like, this is the greatest job ever. I get to I'm surrounded by cake. And also, they would give me a cake every time that I'd work. They're like, okay, what cake do you want to take home with you today? Sort of thing. What would you like? And so I got to pick whatever I wanted to take home, sort of thing. So I was like, this is the greatest job ever. And then after a few months, I was just like, I hate the smell of cake. and one of my jobs was to make the cream for the cakes. And so we'd have this big mixer for the cream, and I had to mix the cream up, and I'd always get it all over my uniform. And so I don't know, it didn't matter how many times I'd wash it, it would always smell like off cream. So I'd smell it off of cream, and then I'd walk into the cakes and I was like, oh. And I did that for like a year and a half, and then I was like, I can't do this anymore.
No, I can imagine actually.
Oh, and the best bit about that job was the name of the shop.
Oh my God, what is it?
Cake It Away.
Oh my God, that's totally a dad named that.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Simon, my partner, my faux husband, he would definitely come up with a name like that. He's such a dad joker. That's cool.
It's kind of like the type of named shop that like, my husband was like, we've got to go in here. Like, it's called Cake It Away.
Cake It Away. That is the best. Is it still open?
I think so.
Really?
I think so. It's actually a chain. They're like a kind of like the Cheesecake Factory, but I think but I'm pretty sure they're still around. Yeah.
It's the best.
Sorry. Okay. If you hear random noises in the background of this episode, my 5-year-old is actually in the room and he refuses to leave, which is fine. But there might be like little sounds and things. So I apologize in advance for the little random sounds. I love hearing about where people have worked and what their job, their employment history was, and what you've kind of collected over the years and what you bring into the work that you do now and what you definitely will not bring into the work that you do now.
Yes. Man, I've actually had quite a few career changes, but mostly it's interesting. I have worked in retail before and I would never do it again. Like, I don't enjoy working in retail.
Oh, I worked in retail as well.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I just didn't like it. But in saying that, it's not the people and the human connection, because I have consulted pretty much most of my career changes. My very first 9-to-5 job was a dental nurse, or an orthodontic assistant, actually, in the big smoke in the city. That wasn't my favorite job either, but, was seeing patients all the time. And then I was a dental nurse, and then I became a vet nurse, right? So vet nursing and dental nursing, very similar, where people are coming in and with fear and with, all sorts of different fears, especially people that are scared of dentists, or, and how they actually dealt with their fear. And what I had to do, especially as a young person as well, is I had to find my own way in how to comfort them, as well as be professional, obviously. Those communication skills were definitely something that I take with me and have expanded on. Definitely, like, as you grow older and wiser and make mistakes and stuff, but it's definitely the human connection and communication with people that I've taken with me. And then that served me as a consultant for in my interior design and color consulting with a building company, like one of the major building companies here. I did that for quite a while, as well as having my own interior design for the last 18 years. But that as well, the dynamics of that, and having two different, like, especially if it was a married couple or a partnership, building a home, and the dynamics of that relationship and who made decisions and how they communicated with that. That was the most powerful thing I've done. And definitely what, I did like over 100, I think nearly 200 homes, so 200 couples, and that over a short period of time, like, when with working with them. So that gave me so much. And I have learned the power of human connection and the power of communication through that. And that's what I've brought to the table today. It was really, really interesting.
That would have been so fascinating. Because you only know what you know, like, from your experience. Yeah. And like, it would be so interesting to see, especially a couple dynamic of how they communicate. I worked in the photography industry, and I worked for a really high-end studio in Sydney. And, couples would come in to to do the viewing after the wedding. So they've had the wedding done, and then afterwards they would come in and see all of the photos, and they'd spend like a whole day with a couple, and they'd sit down and they'd work out what the wedding album would be, like which photo is going to go where in the album, how big it's going to be, what extra prints they're going to get, what they're going to get framed and mounted to the walls, and all of this sort of stuff. And they would spend on average about $10,000 doing this. Like, it was a high-end studio, and it was always so interesting to see the couple dynamic and like, the decision-making process and who would lead it and how they would communicate as they're making decisions. And quite often, you know, you'd notice that one of the couple would be like leading it and going, this like that like that. And the other one's like, okay, cool. Yeah, whatever they want. And like, it was interesting because sometimes it would be, you know, it was, I'm not going to say like it was always, you know, the bride, but it was like, it was actually quite interesting to see, like, it wasn't always the bride that was making most of the decisions as well. And, you know, some couples were really great at communicating. Some of them went in there and were like, we don't even know what we want. Like, show us what we want, sort of thing. And kind of left a lot of that up to, you know, the studio to design for them. So
really interesting, isn't it? And it's, I guess for you, it's like, you know, seeing them picking out their photos, and for me it was like seeing them picking out their tiles. But it's like it was just really interesting dynamics and how stressful it became, and the overwhelm of it all. You know, that being overwhelmed by choices that they had to make, overwhelmed for choice. And, you know, and then just so stressed out that they would get exhaustion, mentally exhausted or emotionally exhausted, and they would choose something just to get it over and done with. And you knew, like for me as a consultant, I knew when that point was, and it was just like, okay, I'm not going to let you make this decision right now, because you're not in that state of mind to, like, not that it's a state of mind, but it's like you'll probably regret this decision.
But also like presenting them with options that they know as well, instead of going, this is all the options in the whole entire world of what you can do right now. But be like, okay, like I think that's the sign of a great consultant, is somebody that can offer those you know, suggestions for them and be like, okay, after listening to what it is that you're actually wanting, this is what I suggest. And I think that's really beautiful when it comes into, you know, when you do have your own business, no matter what it is, really understanding your clients, because they're all going to be different, and not trying to, I mean, I guess it depends on what it is that you do, but, you know, offering things to them or suggesting things to them that you know is going to be helpful for them in particular, and not overwhelm them. Because like what you said, people make rush decisions or make choices just to make a choice, even though that it's like that wasn't actually what they wanted. And they're like, I just had to make a decision because there was a deadline, or because I was taking too long, or and I couldn't decide, and I just wanted this like tension to be over. So
right.
That's
and
really
giving
cool.
in as well. Yeah, definitely. And I think that, you know, it's a good consultant will know that it's about them and not about themselves. You know, it's not about my portfolio. It's not how good I am. It's about how good you are, how it's all about you and what your desires are, and fulfilling that desire and having the most beautiful process in the meantime. So, you know, it's not getting from A to B and it was absolutely painful, that when you get to B, that you just resent it and you just have a bitter feeling and a sour taste in your mouth. It's making it so it was enjoyable to a degree that it was just like, this is the best decision we ever made.
Oh, I love that. I find it so interesting that you've had so many different types of jobs. I mean, I have too, but there's like common themes that happen with it, especially with like with retail, for example. And I feel like when I did retail, I worked in a clothing shop, and there was a target, a sales target that we were supposed to meet every time that we had a shift. And I'm the type of person that, like, at the time I was very much like, I don't sell to people. Why I was working in retail, I do not know. But like I was
this is a thing.
Yeah. So, but it actually taught me some really beautiful things, is like when I would try and sell to people and be like focused on, okay, crap, I need to make at least 500. I don't even remember what it was. Like I have to make $500 worth of sales or whatever the target was for the day. Yeah. And I'm like, I would be stressed out. I'll be trying to convince people to buy stuff because I'm like, crap, I've got to meet this quota. And if I don't meet this quota, then I get in trouble. And then if I get in trouble this many times, then, you know, I'm out of a job, blah, blah, blah. So I found very much that if I was honest with people and, you know, they could see that I was being genuine and genuinely trying to help them find what it is that what they wanted, not what I was like trying to sell them as much as possible. Those were the days when I was like, it was easy to make the sales quota and I didn't even realize. And I'll get to the end of the day and I'm like, I didn't even know how much I sold today, but it was fun. And other days when
there you go.
Yeah. And other days when it would be like, oh, head office is like blah, blah, blah with the sales right now. Like everybody make sure you get your sales. When it was that sort of environment of pushing, of like being worried about it, always felt so hard and it felt like nobody wanted to buy anything. And that was my, I lasted a few months and then I was like, guys, I'm out.
I can't sell products. I can't. And if people I can't sell them intuitively, I know, or there's vibes or if people say no, I'm not going to try and convince them. You know, I'm not going to try and convince them that's what they need when I know they don't need it. So that's, you know, and that's why I definitely it's helped me with my sales process in what I do now. It's just, I don't sell that way. It just doesn't sit right. It's icky. I can't get on a cold call and go, hey, here's this thing that you need right now. I can't push people to real hard pain points and go, this is what you need right now. And the only way that you're going to get out of that pain is to come with me.
Yeah. Give me your money and you're like, yeah. Otherwise, you won't ever get out of this.
Makes me want to vomit.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. I loved the chatting to people bit though. Yeah. I really liked that. And then I've worked in quite a few pubs and clubs and things like that. And I think
that was fun.
Yeah. And like, it was so cool because, you know, there wasn't a quota that you had to, I think that's pretty much illegal to have a quota on how much you have to sell in like an environment where it's alcohol.
I was going to say, because I was Tatts-lotto, my retail was Tatts-lotto tickets, Tatts-lotto scratchies and jelly beans. I didn't have to have a quota for that.
But like I really liked that because it was like people would come and they were in a social environment and they'd like come up to the bar and they would talk to you and they'd be like, they'd ask you how your day was. Like sometimes, usually towards the end of the night, you'd get quite a few, you know, comments and like, you know, the conversations start to go a little bit south and you're like, no.
That's when you really want your shift to end. That's when it's just like, come on, guys, let's wrap this up. I need to clean some tables and glasses and I want to go home.
Yeah, that's when you start to like look at the security guard and then you're like, guys, like keep an eye on this one because this ain't fun.
Exactly.
But I really enjoyed the banter and reading people's energy when they came up to the bar.
Yeah.
And like, you know, I wasn't on every single shift. I worked a lot in bars. Like I was working when I was studying. So I was working like 5 or 6 shifts a week as well as studying and stuff. Yeah. Okay. Like full on and working really weird hours because the places that I worked in were like nightclubs. So they would be open until like 3 a.m. And then, you know, after pack up and stuff, you wouldn't get home until like 5 or 6 a.m. And then having school as well, it was kind of like shift work and my sleep patterns were all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some shifts I would rock up and I'd just be like dirty. I'll be like, I don't want to be here. I just want to be asleep. I just want to be out drinking myself or like whatever the thing was. So like, yeah, but I found that the shifts that I really enjoyed and yeah, getting into the vibes of that and, you know, being somebody that like people naturally want to have a conversation with the bartender. So it's really cool. So so I really enjoyed it. And one of the things that I really learned from that was like reading people's energy and body language and being a photographer. I've always been a photographer and I love looking at people's body language and stuff. And it was always kind of like this little, not a game, but kind of like a game that I'd play with myself. And I'd be like, oh, like, what's the opener with this person? Like reading their body language and their energy first. And like, I got pretty good with like being like, okay, in what energy am I going to like be able to serve this customer in a way that it's going to be enjoyable for both of us? Because, you know, some people are not up for the chit chat.
That's true.
Some people are in a bar and they're like, I don't know, they're with a group of friends and maybe they're talking about something or there's a discussion or something's about to go down or like somebody's breaking up with somebody and blah, 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 like read the room sort of thing. And it was always so interesting to sort of like when I'd nail it, I'd be like, oh yeah, I was so onto that one. And then other times I'll be like, whoa, okay, I did not see that coming. What is going on here?
Oh, I love it. That's good. That's actually really cool because you'll be able to notice when people's inhibitions are, you know, the guard goes down, the drops. And that's really cool. Yeah. I remember working in a bar and this old guy at the bar, he'd spend his nights there like from about 5 o'clock and he'd put his $2.60 on the bar back then because that was the price of his light beer. But it was I think it was one or two, I don't know, first or second shift there. And he's just like, I, you know, saw that his glass was empty and I'm like, yeah, another one. And he's just like, so I'm such and such, I'm Bill. And that's what
there's always a bill.
Oh yeah, that's what that $2.60 means. And you should know this by now. You should know that $2.60 means another light beer, exactly the same, and it gets to, you know, and when old mate, when it's, you know, when I've got one mouthful or two mouthfuls left, that's when you get it up and
pour it,
and you should know.
Yeah. And it has to be exactly like this. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Every bar has at least one of those dudes that just walks in and thinks he's like the king of the castle in there.
Yep.
And like expects you to bow down and like, he's here. Okay.
Yeah.
Everything else has to go out the window because, you know, we've got to take care of this guy. He's been coming here every day for blah, 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 blah. Like, God bless them. But at the same time, you're like, dude, get alive. I don't want to say dude, get alive. But like, like it's, there would always be, you know, those guys in the pub. But like,
if you test your character,
they do. They do. Yep. And if you get on the wrong side of them, like you can't, it's kind of like you can't win yourself back on their good side. No, you're like forever the bartender that's been banished from like even they'll never like you. Them.
Yeah, exactly. They will never like you ever, ever, ever.
They just complain about you, like the whole thing. So yeah, I do know that, and that is kind of like a situation that if you do work in bars, there's always going to be old mate that likes things a certain way, and if you don't do it, they're like, well, this is just not going to work, is it?
Oh, that makes me laugh so hard just remembering that. So fascinating.
I loved people watching in the bar. Like there was just like, I'm trying to think of like the characters that used to come in. Like there was always the regulars that had their certain ways that like especially in the nightclub we had, I think it was Wednesday night was uni night, And so I worked in this bar that was like right next to, it was very close by to one of Sydney's universities. And yeah, Wednesday night was like loose, like all the uni people would come on a Wednesday night and just rip it up and tear up the dance floor. And there was like, there was like the regulars that would always come. And it was just so interesting. Like human behavior is such a fascinating thing.
It's so fascinating. It's so fascinating. That just reminded me of something actually, because I used to do vet nursing by day and work at this bar by night, right?
Yeah.
And I'd have all different shifts. So some shifts I'd be on call for vet nursing, so I couldn't, do stuff, but I'd start really early or I'd start later in the day and go till late at night. But we'd, like us vet nurses and a few of our, like my vets friends, like we were sort of around the same age, right? And so we would knock off from vet nursing all day and vetting, like the vets would, doing surgeries, and I was assisting in surgeries and stuff and cleaning up all the messes. And we would go to this bar to have, a few beers, and we'd just take off because we'd have we just wear jeans and Blundstone like boots and stuff. That's what you wear. And then you just have like a scrubs thing over top of just to, I don't even know why, because it didn't really save us in the end from getting all this yucky stuff on us. Anyway, we'd just rip it off, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's beer o'clock, let's go, right? We're in our early 20s. And then we'd go to this bar, didn't think anything of it, and, have beers, play pool. We used to watch Friends episodes on the big screen together.
How cool was Friends?
Oh, yeah. And what was the other one? The Drew Carey show. We used to watch that. just smashing beers, playing pool. And then you look at us now, like we think about it and we laugh hard about it. We didn't even wash our arms or anything. So we'd have blood up our arms, blood splatters on our jeans,
animal blood.
Or the betadine stuff that's all over you because you've got to scrub, that before you open for surgery. We just didn't. That was our life. So we just didn't even, you can't see it, when you just can't see it. And now we're like, oh my God, anyone do is empty that bar. It was nuts, mate. It was nuts. I could imagine how it smelled as well.
Oh,
but yeah. So, but for me to think about that now, would I do that? Oh my God, no.
It would have been like that group of people that would be like, oh yeah, these people coming in again. The people covered in animal blood.
Yeah,
quick, the vet nurses here.
And then when we did scrub up, they would literally say, you do scrub up all right, because when we go out and get dressed up and stuff, we just,
you're not covered in animal blood.
Exactly.
You look great.
It didn't matter what we looked like, really. Anything would be better than that.
Oh my God.
Oh God, the things we did.
Oh my gosh. I was talking about this today. I actually did a live stream over my Facebook. I did a live stream over my Facebook page today, and I was talking about when I worked in the bar, or one of the bars that I worked in. It was actually the bar that I worked in when I met my husband. And it was, I don't know if it's still the case. This was 10 years, more than 10 years ago. It was probably about 15 years
ago. Good try, girl. Good try.
Just a casual 10.
Whatever.
5, 10, 15 years ago, we worked there. And it was I think the collection of tequila that we had there was the second biggest in the Southern Hemisphere. Might have been just Australia. It was some big claim that we had was we were one of the biggest tequila bars.
Wow.
And in order for us to be able to sell said tequila, because a lot of people would come in wanting to try different types of tequila because we had them. So we used to have a lot of people come in and be like, oh, okay, we're tequilaing tonight. I'm like, okay, cool. But in order for us to actually know what we were selling and being knowledgeable, because we were a tequila bar, we actually had to try the tequila to understand what we were selling.
That's a bit cool.
one Monday night, because pubs on a Monday night are dead. So one Monday night, all the staff had to go in and like taste test all of this tequila that we had. And I mean, we had like, I can't even remember. I think we had something ridiculous, like 30 different types of tequila or something.
Wow.
Like it was, yeah, or maybe even more. I can't even remember. But we were selling tequila from like, you know, really bottom, like really cheap
shelf stuff.
Yeah, to like, I think the most expensive tequila we had was like $70 a shot or something. Like it was pretty, yeah.
Whoa.
And it might have even been more. I cannot remember. It's been a long time. But yeah, so we had to know when people would come in and ask for a shot of tequila, we weren't a bar that had like, you know, the house tequila and maybe one other and that was it. Like we had a lot. We're like, what do you want? And they're like, oh, what do you have? And we're like, we've got actually a tequila like menu that you can peruse, like a wine menu, but it was all tequila.
This sounds fancy.
I know. So yeah, we had to know what we were talking about. And when somebody wanted to try something, we had to try and, you know, good customer service. We're like, okay, well, let's find the perfect tequila for you. And then you'll come back and buy some more tequila. So yeah, we had to do a taste testing and it was just so interesting. And I loved the whole process of that because it really, I got this understanding of like the experience of things.
Yeah.
Because for me at like 20 years old, I was like, why the hell would you spend $70 on one shot of alcohol when you could buy several drinks for that?
You can get smashed on.
You can get hella smashed.
$21 worth of tequila.
I was like, why would somebody pay that much just for tequila? Like, what? That's insane. Just buy the cheap stuff and you'll be right.
Yeah.
Like it gave me a really good understanding of like the experience of things and how, you know, just because it's got a dollar amount, it's the experience, it's the value of the thing. And yeah, and also just because it's the most expensive doesn't mean it tastes the best either.
Yeah.
So we went, so we tried, I think we tried like the sort of like the house tequila first and like the usual ones that people would buy. And then we tried the really cheap ones that tasted like petrol. It was freaking disgusting. Yuck. And then we tried like the top shelf stuff. And it was really beautiful because it showed like this, like when you would buy, you know, a more expensive tequila, you actually create an experience around it. Like you put it in a different glass. You like, there was ways that in which you could, you know, present it and things you could put with it to make it taste amazing and be this experience. Like, you know, it's sort of the mid-range, you do like the lemon and the salt sort of thing. And you try and like, you know, make it taste better as soon as you've like tried to drink it. Cause you're like, oh, it's tequila. And like, or like you've got the Tabasco and tomato juice chasers and stuff to try and like dull the taste.
The fire.
Because you're like, this isn't like pleasant tasting because the cheaper ones are not. And so it's like a different experience. It was really interesting to see also like customer behavior of like people that would come in to try and get as much bang for their buck as they can and try and like go, all right, let's just get drunk and I don't even care what I drink and I just want to have a good time, blah, blah, blah. And there's other people that are like, I want to have a good time, but I want to experience, like I want to enjoy my drink. I want to sip my drink and like sit into it and have an experience and all of that, as opposed to like, you know, how much can I get for this? Which I think is the mentality, a lot of the mentality of like the younger people when they go out drinking. They're like, all right, I've got this amount of money. How drunk can I get?
Exactly.
As opposed to like, oh, well, like what's the experience I want to create here? So that's
really cool. Because I've had the privilege of being at 2 of your workshops now. And you create an experience. You can see that you're not just throwing shit at people to get a bang for your buck for your, you know what I mean? You're not, you have created this art, and the way you hold workshops is it is an art. You go away from it going, whoa, what just happened? That was amazing. But you have created this art of making it the most beautiful experience. Like I'm going to call them top shelf tequila workshops now, because there's really is like that. Yeah. So, I mean, you've obviously taken that away from your experience.
It was something that I sort of just realized. I was like, oh, this is like something that I highly value because I've experienced it. And I could see that it's not about like doing the more expensive thing to do the top shelf thing. It's about the experience of the thing. And I think that that's what people who are more into designer things would say as well. Like, to me, I'm not really into, buying designer things. I might down the track, that might be a thing, but I do like quality. I do like spending my money in a way that's going to provide an experience for me. And I think becoming a minimalist really, really helped me in this, because before we traveled around Australia, we were living in a place with toxic mold. So we had to get rid of everything pretty much that we owned. And it at the time it sucked. But I was also like, well, it saves us from putting it in storage while we're away and all of that sort of stuff. But now when we buy things, we consider it more. We don't just buy things because we're like, oh yeah, we'll just get one of those, and we'll just get the cheap one because who cares if we keep it or not, and that sort of mentality which we kind of had before. And now it's like, okay, well, what's the experience that I want to have? Do I actually need this, and will this add value to me? Like, regardless of the cost, like obviously sometimes when you're looking at things, especially, take a car, for example, you got to consider your budget or how much you're willing to spend on it. Right.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, I don't know, avocados in the supermarket. Like, avocados can range from like $1 per avocado to like $6 per avocado. And you're like, do I really want the experience of an avocado right now? Me, myself, I'm not phased with avocados. I'm not one of those people that are like diehard avocado fans. I'm like, it's $6. I'm not going to get an avocado for that, because I know the experience. I'm going to be like, it's like mush. I just eat it because it's good for me, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if there's mangoes for sale, I don't care how much a mango is. If I want a mango experience, I'm like, I will pay for it, because I want to experience eating a mango right now. Like,
I totally resonate with that. Oh my goodness.
So the shift from like the experience that you're creating, rather than trying to, I guess this comes into it a bit, but like when I'm pricing things or when I'm putting things together that I'm selling in my business, it's about like, what's the experience that people are going to get from this, or what is the experience that I'm wanting to create? And versus like, well, it's got this, and I charge this for this, and then if I calculate this, then therefore it's going to be worth this much or whatever. But always trying to give like that top shelf experience to people. Like, give them something that they're wanting, that they want to sit with, and that they don't want to chase with like some tomato juice and Tabasco after like consuming, because they're like, like, I just wanted to get like the hard fix and like the quick fix or whatever it was, and now
this
I'm
is
done.
It's like it circles back to making it for them and not for you as well, isn't it? It's like it circles back to making them feel good, making them feel proud, making them have the transformation, making creating that so that they get to experience it, and that's what fills up. I think that's I've loved these stories. What about an experience or a job that you've had, or maybe an experience that has happened to you that you like, I'm never taking this with me, or you remember it's a gift because that's not how you treat other people or whatever. What is that for you?
That's a really cool question. Yeah, because this is actually, I love diving into this, because I've had so many different jobs that like I don't know if you got this from, you know, people around me. It's like, when are you going to settle down and like have your career? Like what, like you keep changing your job. They're like, oh, you always think that, you know, the next job's going to be better. And I don't know if that's like, because I was always just like, yeah, I can't work for other people. And I'd be like, yeah, maybe it's this kind of job. And then I do it. I'd be like, yeah, it's not fitting right. Maybe I'll try a different kind of job. But then realizing like, I actually work better if I work for myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, but there's been a few experiences that I've had where I was just like, I can't do this. And I think one of the things was a big thing that happened in quite a few jobs, and I'm sure people could relate to this, was actually, I know that, like, I understand why, but I've had a few jobs where I had to, one of them I actually had to do this in the interview process. And then I was like, why did I even want this job in the first place? Was like fighting for what felt like fighting for the salary that I got. And I understand negotiating, and I understand, you know, when you've been in a role for a certain amount of time, then you're like, okay, I would love to have a pay rise. I feel like, you know, what I'm providing. That's my kid sneezing in the background. Are you okay? Random sounds in our podcast. So yeah, like I was always more than happy to sort of, you know, go in and ask for a promotion, like a promotion or a raise when I felt like it was warranted. And I'm like, this is the amount of work that I'm doing. And I feel like, you know, I deserve a raise and all of this sort of stuff, and stating my case. I never felt really awkward about doing that, or depending on the boss, it would be like, you know, it was a hard conversation to have and to bring up, especially well, all of my bosses were male. So there was that dynamic too, like a young female and like an older male, and saying, please give me some more money. Like knowing that, but it kind of feels like that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
But the whole thing that I didn't like was like why do you think that you get to have this? Like that sort of being met with that mentality of like, oh, you're asking for me for more money. Why do you think that you deserve it? Like state your case and pretty much try and convince me that I should give you more money, as opposed to, you know, I'd been in jobs where, you know, they would go, we're going to give you a pay rise because we love the work that you're doing. And I didn't have to say anything. But then there was other positions that I worked in for companies and for people that it was like, unless you asked for it, they would not give you a pay rise. Like that tight ass mentality of just like, there was one job that I had, and it was very much like, I had several meetings with the boss about getting a pay raise. And I was like, it's below industry standard. And I'm like, you know, I know we're a small business, but it's below industry standard. You hired me to fulfill a certain role.
Yeah.
And then once I was hired, you knew about all these other skills that I had, but the role didn't require these skills that I had trained for. And now they were starting to creep over into my role. And I was like, oh, well, if I'm going to be doing this work for you, then the industry standard, this is why I don't like working for other people and just like making money. Yeah. That like, and being unlimited with the amount of money that I can make. Cause I'm like, I don't want to have to know what the industry standard for like this kind of work is.
Exactly.
And I was like, if you're going to use my graphic design skills and my marketing skills that I have trained for, this is the industry standard. You can't classify it under something else and expect me to do that. Like that's not part of this skill set. And I had to have several meetings, and it was pretty much like I had to bring in like, this is actually industry standard, and this is what, you know, the law says. And it took me and it was remarkable. Like I got the pay rise, but they said to me, they're like, we've never given somebody this much of a pay rise before. And we've never like, you know, you got this amount of pay rise or whatever it was. It was like, I don't know. I think it might have been like a 10% pay rise or something, which is huge.
Okay. Yeah.
Because
usually
usually
it's like your CPI or something.
Yeah. And I was
3%.
like, okay, but that's what you're requiring me to do. So like that sort of thing, like, I don't ever want to be somebody who requires anybody who works for them to beg for a pay rise or to feel like they're not being valued with the salary that they are given, and to feel like they have to justify and like explain why the hell do they think that they should get this amount of money. Like, how dare you come into my office and demand this and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, like that wasn't how I went. Like, I didn't obviously go in and demand it, but it kind of felt like their response was, why are you demanding more money from us? Like, prove it to us. Like, why should we do this? Yeah. And it was very much the energy of, this is an inconvenience paying you this much. And then
aren't you gonna perform well now?
And then and then the pressure was on, and then it was felt like everything that I did was kind of scrutinized in a way and like micromanaged from then on. And I was like,
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, if you can't come to the middle with things, I think, definitely it's like, why am I here? And why should I have to fight for that? And why are they using my skill set under the pretense that, that.
And it happened quite quickly and quite like before I knew it, that's what I was doing. And I was like, oh, but you guys hired me only a few months ago for this. And then, after a year, I was just like, hang on a second. No, this isn't right. Mm-hmm. So,
wow. Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, it was just like not being stuck. I never wanted to be in a career or in a job that I felt stuck in. If I was unhappy, if I was miserable, I always gave myself permission, or just, it wasn't a decision like, oh, you know what, I hate this job, I'm going to walk out. It was a decision that was well thought of and thought over, but it was definitely not, okay, I've chosen this career, so I have to stick at it to get my long service leave. And then, because
there's all the little like things. It's like, you get this, but you have to like, you have to have worked this amount of time or this amount of hours. That's right. It has to be, there was always clauses of stuff. Exactly.
And if you want to get to that next level, your supervisor has to either resign or quit before you can get up. Like there was so many ceilings. But it was a risk for me back when, I'm talking mid 90s to, mid, like for the 10 years after leaving school. It was a hard sell to get jobs if you've got a lot of jobs on your resume. It was a hard sell because they're like, you can never stick at things.
Yeah.
What? You're not loyal. You don't have the stamina, or you can't stick at it, or, maybe you don't work. Were you sacked from each of these jobs? Like all of that was there. And so it was a risk for me to take. And it wasn't until I actually went for a job. I went for a position. And the lady said to her superior, who, obviously was in charge of hiring, he said, nah, there's no way. Look at her resume. She's got so many different things on there. She just can't hold a job down. And she said, you know what? Her hobby is a horse trainer. And I know what it takes to be a horse trainer, to get up at 4 a.m. every morning and do that day in, day out, no holidays, no weekends off. No, this is what, been doing this for years, and that's what she chooses. And she basically stood up for me and he goes, okay, hire her. We'll see how that goes. And I was there for ages. Like, this is the thing, is it's like takes one person to change the perspective on it. So there's lots of learnings there. There was, it was hard. It was hard, Yaka, but all those jobs, all those positions, all those life lessons, all those business lessons, especially communication lessons, all led to me being here now. And I will never change that. I'm like, this is what I've chosen, this entrepreneurship, this, you know, working for myself. It has paid off big time.
I feel like when I look at, like, I used to be, you know, not ashamed, but sort of just like, oh, I've got all of these different things on my resume of like all these different kinds of jobs. And then I work at this one for a bit, and then I go to this one, and then I go to this one, like, yeah, looking like, oh, she's, you know, a flight risk, or, you know, can't hold a job down, and all of these things. But I look back and I'm like, go me.
Yes.
Like, honoring my soul. I was honoring myself. I was every time I quit a job.
Yeah.
And like, I never got fired from a job. I always quit because I was like, I can't do this to myself anymore. Like, I'd just gotten out of doing a whole lifetime of schooling where I felt like I was trapped and I couldn't leave, and I wanted to leave. And I was like, this is not serving me. I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
And then I was like, why do I want to put myself in a position like that for money? Yes, I know money is, you know, something that, you know,
security.
It buys you shelter and food and all the necessities of life. Like, it's kind of a big deal. But I would never leave a job until I had another one.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's Me too. I think that was one of the things that I did. And when I did start my own business, I mean, I did have my own business while I was working for other people for quite a few years. And then I had our first child, and my job at the time made me redundant after that. And that's when I kind of went, all right, well, let's go all in on this business then. Yeah. Let's do this, because, you know.
Man, that's like, so similar.
Yeah. So, because that was the other thing. I felt this like, well, nobody's going to want to hire me because I haven't worked for a year, because I've had a baby, and because I've got a young baby, I don't want to work full time. And who's going to want to hire somebody not full time, and who's just had their first baby, who's probably likely to have another kid.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? When you're a young mom, it kind of feels like, oh, and then they're going to want more time off. And that actually was a conversation that loosely was had with one of my employees. Was like, one of my employers was like, how do I know that you're not going to go and have a baby? And I was like, what has that got to do with anything? But at the same time, like, imagine how much of that gets put into the decisions that some people make when they're promoting people and when they're putting people in different positions in there. Like, I know it's illegal to do that and it shouldn't be a thing, but there's
unspoken word.
It is. People are like, well, you know, who's going to give me the best performance with as little, you know, issues.
Exactly. That's it.
Like paperwork.
I know. This is why I do what I do. And it's not just because I have my previous life feeling stuck and like a bird in a cage, but it's like all of this has accumulated. You know, you don't have to stay where you feel stuck. You don't have to stay where you're unhappy and where your soul is miserable. And that's why that is my message to this day. And it is, like we said before, honoring your soul.
Yeah.
You know, in every way you can. And
And I've had conversations like this with friends before. And, you know, they've got things that they absolutely love to do. Like, they've got hobbies and passions and things. And some of these things, like, they'll do, you know, as side businesses, or they'll do for friends and family and stuff. And I, you know, a couple of times I've asked them, like, why don't you just like start your own business and do this? Because like I'm like, that's what I love to do. Like, maybe you love to do it too. And like, quite a few of my friends are like, nah, like, I like having a job where I can pretty much just put my brain on autopilot and not think. And not have that pressure of something that I love having to make me money, which I totally get as well.
Totally get that too.
So I know that it's just honoring your soul, whatever that is. I think that's a really, really big value of mine, and I love that I've got that perspective through trying it and seeing like, no, this didn't fit, and having the guts to be like, okay, well, let's try something else. Like I've had so many different types of jobs. It's like, well, that didn't feel like, that kind of felt fun, but for a while, and then it didn't feel fun. And I liked this about it, but I didn't like this. Okay, what else can I do? So I've worked in like so many different parts of like the photography industry. Like I've worked in studios, like labs, and I've worked in like so many different areas of it. Sorry, my son's just distracting me. And yeah, and it was like, this kind of felt good, but then this didn't feel good, and then this felt good. But then even having my own business where it was purely doing photo shoots for people, like that actually didn't feel good. And I'm like, well, how else? Like, I know that I love photography, and I know that I love having this a part of my business, but how else can I do this in a way that fully feels amazing?
Yeah.
And not just having to do, you know, photo shoot after photo shoot after photo shoot. I love doing photo shoots, but to do it full time every weekend and every week and stuff, I was just like, nah, I can't. It's making me hate it.
This is yes. Oh my goodness. Because this is, and especially the work we're doing now, is that we expect the changes. We expect that we have to change. The dynamics are going to change. The climate's going to change. We expect that we're not going to be doing this, right, what we're doing right now, for the rest of our lives. Like, we haven't come to the end of our journey in this. We know that there's going to be more shifts and changes in how, you know, social media works, how different platforms work, how we put ourselves out into the world. That's all going to change too. So it's kind of like now, well, I feel
we've put ourselves in a position where like we need to change. How cool is that?
Yeah.
We've been practicing with our whole lives for this.
Yes. So it doesn't feel as scary, I guess, as it would if you were in a position for 20 years and all of a sudden you're starting in something new. That how daunting that would be.
Yeah. So interesting.
So interesting. Wow. Yeah. So it's this has been the best conversation. It's kind of like, if there's anything that I've taken away from that, it's definitely honoring your soul and having that top shelf tequila.
Yeah.
That experience.
The top shelf experience.
Yeah.
How can you cultivate that? The top shelf experience. Yeah. I think the culture and the culture of what you create and the energy in which you're creating is so important. And I love having so many different experiences in so many different roles on like how that can be on so many different levels, and what I like and what I don't like what fuels me and what definitely does not fuel me. Because
love that.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yep. Know when to hold them. What's that song? Know when to fold them. Know when to run.
Know when to walk away. Know when to run.
That's it.
The gambler.
That's it. The gambler. There you go. I don't know why that just popped into my head, but it's kind of like, you know, just
but that's the thing.
Listen to your soul.
Yeah, know when to hold them, know when to fold them. Like, it's time to put this hand down and do something else. Yeah. Pick some more cards up. Try something different.
Absolutely.
I love it.
You don't have to stick with the hand you dealt with for the rest of your life.
You don't. Boom. Mic drop. Dong. Wait, hang on. I can actually do it.
That was good. Oh, God, I love you, girlfriend.
Wow, Rose!